So in this short video today, I'm going to give you a bit more detail to the term back foot receive. So let's get stuck in and see what we can do. Now, the back foot receive, one of the most commonly used phrases in football. Now, a number of players that I work with, one of the first questions I ask them is, what is the back foot? And it takes them a little bit of time to figure out what it actually represents. So for those of you that don't know, the back foot receive is a technique that requires you to use the foot that is furthest away from where the pass is coming from. And its efficiency is fantastic because it gives us the opportunity to take the ball away from where it's come from in the hope that there's free space behind. But it must be known and must be made factual that it isn't essential in all cases. Now, some of the best players in the world actually receive with the front foot or the sole to set up the next passage of play. So players like Thiago, Busquets, players who have come from maybe a futsal background tend to use a slightly different technique. So whilst I'm going to give you some information regarding this method, you mustn't assume that we can always use this in every situation that we play. So an example of the back foot receive. So if I use this rebounder, the rebounder is the passer, and I'm going to look to take it beyond my midline of my body and away into the free space. So I use the rebounder, it comes across my body, and I take my touch and run away with it. Now, as a coach, I've worked with hundreds of players where we use that term regularly, but I've also reflected on it recently and understood that just saying that alone actually is a disservice to the players. And it's because we need to understand the timing of when to take that back foot receive. Now, I've got some mannequins here today that are going to represent where pressure might come from. Now, naturally, if I had more players, it would be a little bit more dynamic. But for the purpose of this example, I think this is a good way to try and layer in some detail. Now, the back foot itself, if I ultimately say that without any other information, I could end up encouraging the players I work with to actually turn into pressure or turn into trouble. So it's important that we lay down information that represents where the pressure comes from to determine the timing of that back foot receive. And I'm going to use this rebounder as an example. Now, the three I look for are a late take, a midpoint take, and an early take. And those three are great ways for players to then understand how to take it in terms of timing, depending upon where that pressure comes from. So I'm going to start with the late take. Now, I'm working off the assumption that this mannequin here is going to be the one that would pressure me. So if the ball is coming from this direction, I want to try and take the ball as late as possible so it crosses my midline, allowing me to run into the free space, whilst also providing a barrier between the incoming defender and the ball. So I'm going to have a go off the rebounder. I'm going to come in and I'm going to let it deliberately come across my body late. So I'm not going to touch it until it passes my midline. So I'm in here late and I can run away with it there. I'm going to have another go just to show you for purpose, assuming that this is where the press is coming from. So if I let it run across my body in a late fashion here, there's the pressure. I've now also created a barrier which allows me to escape into free space. So that's the first one, the late take on the back foot. So the next one we're going to look at is the back foot again, but what I call the midpoint take. So I'm going to work off the assumption that this mannequin now is putting a bit of pressure on, almost immediately behind or on the shoulder line effectively. Now, if I go with the late take here and the pressure comes in there, I'm effectively going to turn into that pressure. So whilst we're assuming we're looking to take a back foot receive, if we don't talk about the timing, I'm doing the player a disservice because they're just turning into trouble. So this is where we adopt what we call the midpoint back foot escape route. Okay, so from here, I'm going to use the rebounder and now I'm going to take it where the ball is on my midline. So assuming the press is coming here, as I come off the rebounder, so I'm here, I'm actually going to take it there and escape between or in front of where the press might come from. So I'm taking the touch along my midpoint of my chest. So a midpoint late receive. One more time, assuming the pressure's coming here. I might have a glance, in it comes there. Back foot takes me across the front of where that press is coming from to escape into the free area. So the last point we're going to look at now is the back foot again, but the early timing. Now working off the assumption that here's the pressure from here and here. If I take the ball late, I run the risk of turning straight into the incoming pressure. I can't go midpoint because there's a block there, so I need to take the ball away into the free space over here. So I'm still going to use the back foot because it's my strongest foot in this example, but I'm going to take it earlier so it's there, and it actually allows me to escape into the free area on my left hand side, away from the press here. So just watch one more time. So if we look at it with foot placement, this would be early, that's mid, and that's late. So it's all to do with the timing of when I take a touch, dependent upon where the pressure is coming from. All back foot, but just layered early, midpoint, late. So one more time, in here, early take into the free area, away from the danger.